Today is December 14th, 2025, and welcome to the 466th episode of the Videogames podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of the show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores and gives full accessibility information on every review that we publish. Hello, thank you for joining me this lovely December morning. It's morning for me, maybe not for you, but that's okay. We're going to just roll with it. Hope things are good on your end. Things are fine here. It's been a busy week. Lots of stuff going on, getting really close to GOTY time. So prepping that. I believe Carlos Rodella will be back to join me on that recording. So you've got that to look forward to. 2 weeks away. So we'll get there soon. But in the meantime, we're here, we're now, and I'm going to kick things off as per usual with housekeeping, where I talk about tidbits, news items, anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. And sometimes it's just random stuff. Okay, what do we got here? First up, just an announcement. The Dark Side Detective, which is a series of comedic supernatural point-and-click games, which I played on the Switch, but I believe are also on PC. They are coming out with a third game. The third one is going to be called Backside of the Moon. This is put out by studio Spooky Doorway, who just put out also Seance of Blake Manor. I haven't played that yet, but a lot of people are really liking that one. But Blake Manor is quite different than Dark Side Detective. This is the Dark Side Detective, one of my favorite point and clicks of probably the last 10 years. It's very economical. It's very elegant. It's very funny. No wasted locations, no wasted items. Most of the things can be figured out just because they either make a lot of sense or it would be the funniest possible answer. But there's no real whack moon logic, no cat hair mustache kind of stuff. So I think that is great news. I believe that Seance of Blake Manor did really well for a Spooky Doorway. I think they're a very talented studio. If you have not played Dark Side Detective 1 and or 2, check those out. They are a perfect fit for the Switch. Maybe you got a Switch 2, you want something to play. I think those are fantastic, and they are right at the very, very top of what I consider to be the nouveau design philosophy of point and clicks, which can survive and be successful in the modern era. I'm not a fan of old school point and clicks where you have, lots of text to read, lots of locations to wander through, lots of like crazy logic that you can't figure out. Games like Dark Side Detective are bucking that trend and prove that there is another way to go, and I really celebrate that. So I love Dark Side Detective. I think they are excellent, and I could not be happier that there's a third game coming. So heads up on that, and hopefully I will get to Seance of Blake Manor sooner rather than later. I've got like 2 weeks to get to it before the end of the year, so we'll see how that goes. In other games news, the Keighley's happened. Video Game Awards happened. I mean, I think everybody knows about that. I didn't watch it, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't watched the trailer from it, and I haven't read the winners. I saw some people saying that Expedition 33 basically swept, which I think we all kind of expected to happen. So congratulations to the developer Sandfall Interactive on a big win across the board. Very well deserved for sure. But the Keighley's happened, Game Awards happened. Check it out. I will check it out at some point. Not right now. I can't do that. I'm doing a podcast right now. I can't do that. Later. In other games news, GameCritics.com and I and some of the writers at the site are still taking a pretty hard stance against generative AI. We've talked about that several times recently. And one of the things about Game Critics that you may or may not know is that we have collectively decided that we are not going to be reviewing games which use generative AI. Now, this is not just like a knee-jerk response against the technology itself, although I think there are many, many, many serious problems with the technology. But like all technology, it can be good or bad. It's like a tool, depending on how you use it. I'm sure there are some good functions. There's a lot of bad functions. But we take that stand against generative AI because we support artists. And I'm seeing way too many people who are talented artists, creators, writers, even programmers and more tech side people who are getting laid off, who are being displaced and put out of a job because of generative AI. And as we all know, generative AI wouldn't exist if it didn't train itself on the work of the people it is displacing. So this is a problem that I think needs to be solved. And I know it's different in other parts of the world, but here in America, there is no safety net. Once you're out of a job, you're fucked. You're on your ass. You lose your health insurance, probably lose your house. You lose, basically everything. I mean, we are kind of this slave class here in America that we're only now just waking up to. Thank you, capitalism. So I feel doubly convinced and doubly sure that, replacing a bunch of people with generative AI is not the way to go. So that said, we're not going to be running any reviews of games which use generative AI, and I feel like that's kind of a big vibe going around right now. We got a code for Anno 117 Pax Romana, and I didn't know at the time that it used generative AI. I found out from the reviewer who was assigned to it. They told me after they had started the review saying, oh, snap, here's a bunch of AI that I didn't know about. So we had a full review going. We had a whole breakdown, had the whole thing, but we killed it because I'm just not going to be reviewing anything that does that. Now, along those same lines, we had reviewed Hotel Barcelona. I talked about it on the show a while ago before I realized it had AI, and then we kind of like backpedaled from covering it. And we also had a full review. So I talked about it here, but we also had a full written review that was going to go on Metacritic. And as soon as I found out about the AI, I'm like, well, we're not going to cover this anymore. And I told the PR people, we made clear where we were standing. I told the Pax Romana people too. I told them exactly what was going on. No response. But I'm happy to say that it seems like the people behind Hotel Barcelona have backed off of the AI. And the most recent report I got was saying they have removed all of the AI in the game, so we can go ahead and review that. Now, I'm doing this because I feel like we have to live in a world where you can recover from mistakes. We are all human. We all make mistakes. And if we don't ever give forgiveness, if we don't let people have the chance to improve themselves, then what is even the point of living? I mean, I've made mistakes. I'm sure you, dear listener, have made mistakes. I'm sure we've all done things that we want to undo or correct or ask forgiveness for. And I think that's fine. I think a mistake made and learned from and not repeated again is part of the human experience. I think the things that we need to watch out for are people who make mistakes, know about it, willingly do it anyway, get caught, and then do it again. So in this particular case, I want to give the developers of Hotel Barcelona the benefit of the doubt. I know that Swery65, who is one of my personal favorite developers, was in that project. And I was very disappointed to see that he had leaned into the AI, but it seems like they're backing off of it. They've removed it. And so in light of that, and in light of the spirit of forgiveness and of self-improvement and of, just like admitting that we're all human, we will be running the updated review of Hotel Barcelona. So you can look forward to that soon. And I'm very glad that they decided to remove the AI. The real question will be, do they do it again? I do not think there will be forgiveness if it happens a second time, at least from us anyway. But this one time I think is totally fair, and it makes sense to run the review now. We'll put a disclaimer on it so you can read about that, and then we'll just move forward. But if there's any developers listening, I think you probably should back off of generative AI. There's lots of artists out there who are in need of a job, writers, programmers, storyboarders, mocap people, lots of people getting displaced. And in America, you're fucked. We can't put these people out on the street. We need them. We need human beings to make art, and we need art to make video games. So we cannot rely on generative AI. There you go. That's my 2 cents. Before we get out of housekeeping, quick heads up to all you dear listeners. As I said earlier, we're getting ready for the Game of the Year show. My plan is to record that on December 28th. You've got about 2 weeks, give or take. I still need your nominations so we can add that to the script and we'll read those off on the show. I need your top 3 games of the year in order, if you can. I need one, your worst game of the year or least favorite game of the year, biggest disappointment perhaps. And then if you like it, you can put in a wildcard nomination. It could be favorite story, favorite character, favorite soundtrack, favorite use of pixels, favorite download time. Whatever. What favorite pizza? I don't care. Anything. It could be a totally wildcard nomination if you want to just get something out there. So your 3 best, your 1 worst, and then 1 wildcard. Send those into the show before December 28th. We will add them to the script. We will read them on the air. Carlos and I will be here reading those. We'll give you a shout out and you will earn our eternal gratitude. One final thing. This is totally not game related at all, but I found it so hilarious and also sad, and I just had to mention it. So, as y'all know, GameCritics.com and So Video Games, we really do lean into games accessibility. Accessibility is something that I really believe firmly in. I've spent my last 30 years working in disability, and it's something that I feel very strongly about. So I am a professional sign language interpreter, nationally certified. I've interpreted at the highest ranks. I can do basically anything, anywhere, anytime. If you need somebody to get it done, I am your man. I don't say that as a brag, but I say that to let y'all know that I know what I'm talking about. And I just saw a recent news article saying that the National Association of the Deaf, which is probably the preeminent association for deaf people here in the United States, is suing the Trump administration because Trump is no longer providing sign language interpreters for any news conferences, news briefs, updates, or anything. He has removed all sign language interpreters from all official government communications. Now, some of you might not realize the significance of that, but let me just really quickly explain. Sign language has no written form. There is no spoken form. It is simply a visual, kinetic, movement-based language that uses heavily use of context, facial expressions, body movement, positioning, speed. It's a performed language. Like, there is no way really to write it down. I know some people have tried with varying degrees of success. I know people are trying to get AI to do it, and I just call bullshit on that. There's no way AI is going to work for this. It's too complicated. It's too human. But sometimes people are like, well, so what if there's no interpreter? You can read the captions. Okay, cool, except not cool, because written English is not the same as ASL. ASL is not the moving version of written English. English and ASL are completely different languages, different grammar, different syntax, different vocabulary. They are not the same. There is no basis in connecting those two languages. There are some shared words, of course. They use the same alphabet, but that's about as far as it goes. So in case you didn't know that, sign language is not the same as English. And so when you're asking somebody who uses sign language to read subtitles, that's like asking somebody to read that in their second language. Now, that's okay for some people if you're super fluent, but not everybody is super fluent. Now, I could probably follow along with Spanish subtitles. I could catch a word here or there, but that would be nowhere as good as if I was hearing somebody speak English. And so that's kind of the same thing. If there's an ASL user, they need to see the sign language. It's not the same thing as just reading the captions. Now, not only is this prejudicial against people who have disabilities, it's also, basically preventing an entire millions of people from getting the information that they need in the format that they need it. But also, I find it extremely funny in a very ironic and sad way. Trump has said he does not want any sign language interpreters near him or in his speeches or anything because it ruins his image. Now, I thought that was extremely funny. And if you don't know this, sign language is very, very, very visual. Lots of facial expressions, lots of movement, lots of showing and not telling. And this is funny because I can totally understand why he would get rid of sign language interpreters, because there's only really two ways you can go when you're interpreting for Trump. Trump's a fucking blithering idiot. He's a shit monkey with a decaying brain. No morals. He's an evil person. So if you were to have an interpreter next to him, every time he said something atrocious and stupid, the interpreter would have to make it look atrocious and stupid. And so it looks like the interpreter is kind of mocking Trump, but really all they're doing is like mirroring what Trump is saying. And if you've heard Trump speak, and I'm sure you have, you know what this means. It's either that, or you completely turn off all of your facial expressions and you turn off like how the language works, and you just kind of move your arms like a robot, which doesn't really work either. And so I can see that Trump is very sensitive. He's like so thin-skinned and so egotistical. He can't stand anybody not giving him their full attention. And also he doesn't want an interpreter there putting into pictures the bullshit that Trump is saying. So I find that very funny that he is aware enough to know that when you translate his words, it just like puts a giant spotlight on how fucking stupid and garbagey he is. But that aside, I do think it is not okay that they are blocking access for millions of deaf people across the country and elsewhere. So anyway, just a quick side note, because I do have a hand in the disability world, and it's something I look at, and oh boy, this world we live in, folks, this fucking world. Okay. Moving on. Let's see. What are we going to talk about? Oh, before we get to the main part of the show here, heads up on the Patreon. All costs of this podcast and sister site GameCritics.com are paid for out of my pocket. And if you love this show, if you love that website, if you look at the archives there, if I'm in your car when you're driving to work, if you like this content that we're creating for you, I would invite you to chip in and help me keep it all running. If everybody listening or reading would chip in just $1 a month, just $1, every expense would be covered. And if you can afford it, I would greatly appreciate it. And speaking of which, big shout out to brand new subscriber. And I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's either Myotron or Miotron. Let me know which pronunciation you prefer, and I'll roll with that. Brand new subscriber, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And they gave me some great feedback, which I will actually put into practice this very show. They were saying they would appreciate if I put the titles of the games covered in the actual title of the podcast to help them locate it and, get their eyeballs on it. And okay, no problem whatsoever. We will do that. We cover a lot of games, so those titles are going to be pretty long, but I'm happy to do that. And if you, other people who are not Myotron or Miotron, have feedback, ideas, suggestions, thoughts, anything, please write in, contact me, let me know. This podcast is kind of a cooperative effort. I want to put out stuff that people want to listen to. I want you to want to listen to it. And if there's something I can do to make it better for you, I am very happy to do that. All right, quick shout out for the YouTube channel, GameCritics.com videos. Check that out on YouTube. It's all curated stuff. It's no trash. We have a brand new look at Death Howl from Eugene Sachs. He's doing a little bit of a quick look sort of a thing. That game looks like it's pretty hot shit, coming out to consoles next year, but it's on PC right now, so check that out. And what else? I guess there's nothing else for it now except to jump right into Circlebacks, where I circle back to things I've covered in depth on previous episodes. Not going to get into all the details again right now. This is just a quick update to let you know if my thoughts have changed on something for better or for worse after spending more time with it. All right, only one circle back today, but it's kind of a big one. Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector. Now, this came out earlier in the year. I want to say January, February, something like that. And I've covered this game extensively on the show. I've talked about it like a million times. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the preamble. Basically, combination visual novel / board game with some dice mechanics, a lot of storytelling, amazing art, great music, etc., etc. Huge fan of the first game. It was my game of the year when it came out a couple years back. So I am in the camp of I like this stuff. But when it came out on PlayStation, it was pretty buggy. I had a lot of problems. Some of it was game ruining for me. And again, I talked to the developer and we kind of worked through it. But the game just wasn't ready on PlayStation, at least not up to my standard at that time. I mean, it was functional, I guess, but it had so many bugs and glitches and problems. I just wasn't happy playing it that way. And I really wanted to get a good experience out of this. So I put it on pause, waited, and it's now December. So I gave it plenty of time. And as we always say, the best time to play any game is 6 months after release. So I waited even longer than 6 months. And I'm happy to say that I finally got through it. The developer has clearly gone back and patched some things, fixed some things. Some of the problems that I had in the past were that some of the clocks which would advance events were not telling me the proper time. I had a lot of cursor issues where the cursor wouldn't click on the right thing. Sometimes I was not able to use the dice of teammates, which sometimes is really important, and I couldn't use those because they were glitched out. Not glitched in the game sense, but glitched as in, like, the game is not functioning. It wasn't a mechanic in the game, like the game just wasn't functioning. A couple other things, like it was just problematic. I tried the game a couple times, couldn't get through it, stopped, but I'm happy to say, roll credits. And I'm really, really glad that I came back to it. And it makes me bummed out, too. I'm really bummed that I had such a problem with it in terms of glitches and bugs, because I feel like that did ultimately kind of take away from the whole experience. I think when all was said and done, I think it's a superb game. I think it's wonderful. I had a wonderful time. Great writing, great art, great music. Everything's great. Great. I was just really captivated by it. Really enjoyed playing it. I think it's a wonderful example of this type of game, which we don't have a lot of. So without just repeating every single thing I've said over the last year, I mean, I think it was great. I think the story was really well told. I got pretty emotional at a couple points, which doesn't happen very often. Not going to say that I shed a tear, but I think maybe, like, it was possible. It could have happened. Like, I'm not above crying. I'm comfortable enough in my masculinity to say that I cry sometimes. That's fine. But, I don't know, it quite cleared that bar, but I definitely was feeling feelings. So that was good. Really liked the cast of characters. I grew to really have great affection for them. Really involved in what was going on. Just a wonderful experience overall. And I feel like I would be bursting with enthusiasm if this wasn't like my 5th attempt at trying to play the game and finally finishing it. It really kind of wore me down in that sense. And I will say that this playthrough was not bug-free. There were a couple of problems I had, mostly with cursor detection, and there were a few other issues, very minor issues, but nothing that really ruined the game, and it didn't prevent me from playing through. So even at this point, I don't think it's a fully bug-free experience, but I definitely think it's well worth playing through, and it is bug-free enough on the PlayStation anyway, that I can recommend it to people without any hesitation. So Marvelous stuff. Really enjoyed it greatly. I really want the developer, I think the studio is called Jump Over the Age, and the developer primarily responsible, Gareth Damian Martin. Really, really looking forward to seeing what they do next. I hope that they continue to explore this combination video game / board game. I think they're really onto that. I think it really works well. I would love to see them kind of take that and apply it to like a Cthulhu type setting, or a really like, creepy mystical type setting. I think that'd be great. Madness mechanics would work perfectly with the dice. I think that'd be a good thing. But overall, without spoiling anything and without talking any more about it, I think it was just a great experience. This is going to be a pretty brief official review because I've talked about it so many times this year. But I did roll credits. Loved it. Thought it was great. Hats off to Gareth Damian Martin and that studio. Wonderful stuff. Overall, 8.5 out of 10. That is the official score I'm going with, and I had a great time. Certainly one of the year's best, something I enjoyed. And once it was in a functional status, I did play it from start to finish. Really had a hard time putting it down. So there you go. Citizen Sleeper 2. I came back. It took me all year, but I did it. Rolled credits. 8.5 out of 10. Great stuff. If you like the first one, or if you're interested in playing something a little bit different, absolutely should be on your playlist this year. Definitely recommended. All right, let's get into some new stuff. I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Actually, more than I thought I was going to have this week. So let me just get into it. First up is Pacific Drive. This came out earlier this year, and I wasn't necessarily playing it for Game of the Year consideration, although I think you could. I believe it debuted on Xbox just a couple months ago, so I think it does qualify if you're looking at new releases throughout the year. But I was just looking at it because I got a code for it a while ago, and I just didn't get to it. And I figured I was between games, wanted to play something real quick and check it out, and I've been curious about this one for a long time. Friends with one of the writers. Shout out to Carrie. Hope you listen to the show. If you do, what's up? I think she's very talented. Really enjoyed working with her in the past when she was doing PR and stuff. So this was the first time I've gotten to Pacific Drive. Now, one of the other reasons I didn't get to it was because, just like with Citizen Sleeper 2, I was waiting for people to patch it. I heard people saying like it was fiddly and it was really hard and there was problems and so forth and so on. And, I was like, okay, cool. Well, this is not like a number one must get to it right now. So I'm going to put a pause on this, come back to it. It has been pretty thoroughly patched, and there's also a DLC that just released. This game is telling the story of the Pacific Northwest, which is literally where I'm from and where this game is set, the Olympic Peninsula. I used to live there. This is all home turf for me, literally. This is about some kind of experiments go wrong in the Olympic Peninsula, which is just basically like foresty and green. And the government shuts it off. It becomes the Olympic exclusion zone. And then people who are trapped in there build a new life. And you got to go in there to do some stuff. You are a, researcher, scientist or something. And you go into this area. You get sucked in through like an anomaly. Weird things happen. And then you end up at this garage where you've got this beater of a car that you need to use to drive around and do stuff. Now, full disclosure, I did not get very far into this game. Bounced on it pretty hard. First thing, when the car hits bumps, I started getting like really motion sick, and that's kind of becoming a theme lately. I don't know if it's just my age or my vision or maybe my stomach, or I don't know what it is, but I've played several games lately that just make me really queasy. And this was fine until we started like hitting bumpy off-road stuff, and I just got really, really ill. So that was a problem. It wasn't as bad as other games have been, but it was certainly nausea-inducing, and so that was like one knock against it. The second thing that I kind of disliked was it's one of those games where, as far as I saw anyway, you don't ever meet anybody, but you hear lots of people talking on the radio and voices chip in, but really it's kind of the solitary experience, at least for the part that I saw. And I'm like, okay, I'm just like not super into that. It's first person, so not my favorite type of presentation either, so it already kind of wasn't getting on my good side. But I drove around, kind of a slow start. I was kind of waiting for something to happen. We get to the garage, and I just opened the garage menu when your car is parked inside the garage, and it was like so many things to craft and to tweak and to fix and to build, and I was like, oh my God, I could feel my soul leaving my body. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is way too much minutia for me. This is not really what I thought this game was going to be like, and not what I signed up for. So I got to that part, and I'm like, I deflated like a balloon. Like you untie a balloon or you pop a balloon, and just like all the air just like went out of me, and I just fell over, and I'm like, I can't summon the juice to play this. So Carrie, I apologize. I'm sure you've done a great job with the writing because you're a smart cookie, but this just I couldn't make myself do it. I couldn't do it. So I said no. I stopped. So between the nausea and the way overwhelming crafting interface, I'm like, I'm done. So that's all I've got to say about Pacific Drive. It did not get off on the good foot with me, and at this point in my life, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to work that hard to get into it. So scratch that one off my list. There we go. Next game to talk about is called Saborus. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. They pronounce it like 9 different ways within the game, and that's very confusing. So I'm going to say Saborus, Saborus. This is a stealth game, I guess also a platforming game, where you play a chicken, a literal chicken, who is on the production line and due to be turned into drumsticks. But something happens, you get bumped off the line, and you end up free. And so you need to escape from this factory, this chicken processing factory, using stealth and all the abilities that a chicken would have. The only thing that's different about this chicken is there's a human controlling it. Otherwise, you don't have lasers, you don't have a knife, you can't blend in the shadows, you can't... I mean, chickens can sort of fly. I know that people have this misconception about chickens. But I have 12 chickens right now, literally in my backyard. I could go out in the backyard and just see the chickens right now. They're there. We eat their eggs. I take care of chickens. I know about chickens. And when chickens are young, they can still fly. Like, they don't fly a ton. Like, we're not talking like they're an eagle or whatever. But they can fly pretty high. Like, when we got our new flock of chickens this year, first thing they did was fly up on the fucking roof. So they flew from the ground, from a standing position, straight up onto the roof, which was like at least 20 feet up, the garage roof. So... they can fly. They fly from the ground to the trees. They perch in the trees. They get on top of the feeder. They get on top of the fence. They can fly. Again, they're not like seagulls. They're not going to go out in the ocean or anything. They're not gliding, but they can certainly fly. It's only when they get a lot older and fatter and heavier that they stop flying and they just mostly stay terrestrial. So just chicken facts for you. Chicken facts! There you go. So you're this chicken. You can jump. You can... fly, not really fly, you just like do bigger jumps. I wish you could fly a little bit more in this game. You can sneak under things because you're chicken sized. So basically you're just kind of like trying to get out of the factory. This game starts pretty good where you watch this little commercial where they're talking about the company that processes the chicken is called Saborus. That's where the name comes from. Saborus Food Company. You watch this video of people being happy and they're in the sun and they're eating and they're healthy. And thanks to Saborus Foods that we're healthy and we love our life and we love everything, etc., etc. Thank you. And then it quick cuts to this bloody, gruesome factory where these chickens are getting chopped up. It's a great start. Like, I think it's very strong imagery, very strong cut, really gets you in the mode quickly of like what you are about to do. So that was a good start, but I feel like everything went downhill from there. The production values on this game are pretty low, and I think the mechanics of this game are not good. You start off with literally no tutorialization of any kind whatsoever, which I guess is fine enough. But the other problem with that is that the visual storytelling, the visual signposting of this game is not good. The graphics are not great. They're pretty low end. And then when you're in the factory, lots of shadows, things are dark, lots of machines all over the place. It's not exactly clear where you're supposed to go or even what you're supposed to do. I was in the very first area of the game, could not figure out what they wanted me to do. I was like going back and forth and I got stuck. And this is the kind of game where there might be let's say there's like a gap underneath a machine and it looks like your chicken can fit, but because the developers don't want you to go there, you just can't do it. Or there's like boxes and it looks like you can jump on top of this box and you're thinking, well, maybe I'll jump on top of this. Maybe that'll get me somewhere higher. But if it's a box they don't want you to be on, you just can't jump onto it. Like there's an invisible wall that keeps you off of it. So some boxes you can jump on, some boxes you cannot, some holes you can fit into, some holes you cannot. It's very like haphazard and not great in terms of communicating to the player what they can and cannot do. The rules of the game, rules of the world are not clear and they seem very arbitrary. So that's kind of a bummer from the start. The visual language of the game just being kind of poor. So I wandered around the first area for like a long time. Literally the fucking first area. Could not figure out what to do. Come to find out that there was like a little I don't know, a doorway or something that's like underneath the chicken processing belt. But my camera was always pointed the other way. Like the camera didn't pan over to it. And there was some like red lighting in there. I guess that was supposed to catch my eye, but because the camera never went that way, I never saw it. And I just was like wandering and wandering and wandering and wandering. I mean, this is the first area. If I get stuck in the first area of an experienced game reviewer, game player who's been playing games for like 40 plus years, if that doesn't stick out to me at first, then I think you need to go back to the drawing board and rethink what you're doing. Finally figured that out. Took so long. I was so irritated by that point. I was just like over it. Then I went to the second area, which gets you chased by some humans, and it's just really janky. You're not sure where to go. You're not sure where you're going for. And if you make a mistake, they catch you immediately and kill you. And at that point, I'm like, okay, look, this is not working. This is like the very fucking beginning of your game. And if you can't get the beginning right, which is the part that every developer spends the most time and polish on, then I have literally zero faith that anything else in the game is going to be worth my time. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm out. Saborus, over. Kind of a bummer because I think the idea of being a stealth chicken escaping from a factory is a good one. But this is just way too janky and just way too just like, ugh. I can't do it. This is not a good experience. All right. Through the magic of podcasting, I actually just took a break and had lunch with my lovely wife. We had some delicious hot dogs. I know some people trash talk hot dogs, but man, it's hard to beat a really good hot dog. You got like a nice bun. You got some toppings on there. That's a good lunch. That's a good lunch, my friends. We also had some white cheese. They're called like healthy puffs or something. Cheetos. It seems like Cheetos is trying to tilt a little bit healthier. And these things are so good. They're way better than normal Cheetos. Fucking could eat a whole bag of them at once. These white puff or clean puff or whatever they're called. The white cheddar Cheetos. Oh my gosh. If you are familiar with health food brands, they taste a little bit like a snack called Pirate Booty, which is kind of funny when you think about it. Pirate Booty is probably pretty fucking nasty in real life, and I don't think I want to go there. But the snack of Pirate Booty, pretty tasty, and these white cheddar puffs are really good. They're like bigger than Pirate Booty, and they are better, and they're cheaper, and they are delicious. And I think it's like supposed to be like a healthier alternative to regular Cheetos. Which is fine with me because if they're better for me, great, because I'm going to eat like twice as many. Super good. Anyway, let's get back to games. Demonschool. Demonschool came out a while ago. It was on my radar, and I just didn't quite get to it until now, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Since you're here and everything, I mean, we might as well, right? So Demonschool is an indie game. I'm playing it on PlayStation. I believe it's on everything, I think. It is pixel-based, kind of isometric view, grid-based when you get to battles. Otherwise, you're walking around and talking to people like an RPG style, JRPG style. But it's very elegant in the design in some ways. So, for example, you'll walk around and there's just a couple of people in the room, and people who have something important to say will have like a little star or something like that. And the people who are just flavor text will have a regular text bubble. So if you don't want to talk to those people, and I don't, then you can skip them and talk only to the important people. It's also elegant in that you don't have an open world to walk around in. You just have a series of rooms, like a classroom, the docks, the park, the museum, or whatever. And so you just go to a menu and choose which one you're going to go to, and then you just go there. And what I really appreciated about this simplicity is that the game so far has been very explicit about, hey, to advance the story, you need to go here, and they'll put a little star by which location, and you just choose it from the menu. You go there, and then you'll see which person, because they have a star on their speech bubble, to go and talk to them. That's great. That's fucking great. I love that. I love the economy of it. They don't make you waste. I mean, if you want to waste time, or if you want to just enjoy the world, or just, wring every last ounce of it, you totally can. Nothing's stopping. You can talk to all the villagers and whatever. You can talk to anybody you want to. That's great. But if you don't want to waste your time, and I don't, they just like boom, boom, boom. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Go, go, go. Like I love that. So developers of Demonschool, if you hear nothing else from this podcast segment, please take away. I love that you respect my time. I feel that you respect my time. And I love the economy and design and how fat-free this experience can be when you're walking around in the world. So why would you walk around the world? Well, I'll tell you. You start the game as a girl who is from a family of demon hunters. I believe you're the last one. You're going to this school on an island because you somehow sense that demon shit's going to go down. You make a friend on the boat, kind of reluctantly, and then you get to the school, and it's very much like Persona vibe. This feels like Persona, like in basically every way. In terms of vibes, visuals, style, that kind of thing. It feels like it could be a Persona like Gaiden or Offshoot or something like that. So you get there, and then demon stuff's going down. Not everybody believes in demons, but you and a friend start getting into it, and then before long, you're battling demons and stuff like that. So it's, it's like, I feel like most people who are listening to this podcast and who play games have probably had experience with one of these type of games where you just like get into the world of demons and have an adventure, like typical RPG stuff. I will say the writing is pretty funny so far. I don't know. It doesn't feel particularly deep. I don't feel, so far anyway, that I've gotten any real good story beats, or that it doesn't feel like they're even taking it that seriously. And that's not a criticism. It just feels like they're going for a very light, kind of jovial tone, which I think works in general. I have laughed a couple times. There's been a couple good one-liners. So I think that's good. But I feel like ultimately Demonschool fell down for me. And the reason it fell down is the combat. Now, I've seen pictures of the combat. I've seen video, and I thought I knew what this was about. But actually, there was a couple wrinkles that I wasn't aware of. So rather than tactical turn-based fighting, which is what it looks like at first glance, like if you watch a video, you're like, oh yeah, this looks like XCOM or something. And I love those. If you listen to this podcast, I love those. But that's not what this is. It's very puzzle-based combat, and I actually detest puzzle-based combat. So what happens is you'll get into a fight. It goes to an isometric grid. You're looking at your character or your characters. You eventually build a party, and you're at the bottom and they're at the top or whatever, and the whole thing's divided up into squares. And for most of the battles, you have a target. It'll be like kill 16 enemies or something. And for the most part, that seems like too many and a lot. But what they really want you to do is lean into combos. Like the entire battle system rests on combos and synergies between characters. And this is very unusual and non-standard. I don't feel like they tutorialize it very well. And I feel like I would bet any amount of money that the developers, because they created this game and understand it, will be able to show me things that are just fucking amazing. They'll be able to take out like 15 guys in one move and show me tricks that I don't understand. But as someone who is coming to this fresh and knows nothing about it, I am a little bit frustrated by the combat. It feels kind of defeating. So one character is a damage dealer, and she will walk forward and punch somebody, and they will move back one square, and you will move forward a square. Your other partner is not a damage dealer, but they are a stunner. So like you will touch a person, they'll get stunned for one turn, and then you will move ahead, and they will move behind. So you're moving characters, and you're also either doing damage or stunning with these people. There's also other characters later. I got a healer and other stuff like that. But for the sake of this argument, let's talk about this. So that already is like kind of unusual. And so the other thing you have to realize, and the thing that really broke this combat for me, was that the movement has to be all or nothing. Let's say, for example, your character can move 5 squares. In most games, you can move 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 squares wherever you want. Not in Demonschool. If you want to move, you have to move all 5 squares. Or you move as many until you hit an enemy. Which means that sometimes you're shooting around the field like too far. Like I'm like, I just want to go 2 squares over, and then I'll be in good position for next turn. I can do a combo, but then I can't. I have to go all 5 squares. And so the crux of this gameplay and combat comes down to your attacker can move forward, or they can move their full distance. Your initial partner can move an enemy backwards or move their full distance. And then each character also has a sidestep where they can move either 1 square to the left or to the right. And so it almost feels like you're moving. If you ever heard of a game called chess, I don't know if anybody knows about this game, chess. It's like little pieces of board. Yeah, look it up. There's a piece in chess that's called a knight. And the way that one moves is kind of wonky. It's like a Y shape, sort of. I feel like the entire time I was playing Demonschool's combat, like I was moving, like all my characters are knights, where I'm like, you have to move in this wonky, kind of stilted, like weird way, and you always move too far. And I guess if you understand it and you create this combat, it's probably cool. But like for me, all I felt was frustrated. I was like, I don't want to move this far. I don't want, why is it like this? I had a really hard time finding the groove. You have to play this game the way the developers want you to play it, or you will be stunningly unsuccessful. And I was stunningly unsuccessful because it just didn't make a lot of sense in my head. I'm like, okay, if I sidestep, then my attacker can go diagonal, but then that only gets like 2 guys. And there's like 9 guys here. But then what can I do with my stunner person? Can she move somebody backwards? But that doesn't seem to help. And I just really struggled with like getting the gist of it. And I guess if you click, that's probably fine. Because I had a couple combats where I was taking out like 8, 9 guys in a row. Like, for example, if there's a whole line of bad guys and they're all in squares that are next to each other, if you get to your attacker in the right spot and you push the first guy back, that guy will push the next guy, that guy pushes the next guy, and so forth and so on. And if they're all slightly weak, it'll like, daisy chain them all out. And so I can see what they're going for, but I would prefer, because what I want is the most important thing in the world. I would prefer that you could do a combination of move as much as you want, but then also take advantage of combos if they presented themselves. But this game feels like it lives and dies on you understanding the movement and doing combos like all the time. You only have, I think, like 3 health points. So if you get hit 3 times, like your character's gone. And if you lose even one character, it's a huge problem because, you only have a very small team. I think I never had more than 3 or 4 people on my team at once. So if you click with the combat, could be pretty cool. But for me, it felt too puzzly in a way that didn't make sense to my brain. And I just ended up feeling really frustrated by it. I get they're trying to do something different, and I can appreciate that. But it just was very odd and very, I don't know, it just didn't make sense to my brain. And I couldn't get into the groove. I just was always like comboing for 2 and 3 guys when I should be doing 8 and 9 guys. And I couldn't figure out what my stunner should be doing. I couldn't realize like what would be the best use case scenario for my person sending someone backwards. How would that work? Like I could only ever do a couple. And I know that was wrong. I was majorly underachieving, but the game wasn't really telling me more than that. And redoing battles after I lost them was really frustrating. And I just wasn't learning how to do it. I wasn't picking up what the gist of it was. There must be some trick or something to it, or just some way of viewing these battlefields that I just wasn't picking up on. So I bounced out of it after that. I just got really, really frustrated with the combat. And this game is like mostly combat. You'll talk, you'll explore stuff, but you're going to be doing like a lot of this puzzle-based combat. And if that's what the lion's share of your time is spent on and you don't like it, you're not going to like any of this game. So I bounced. But I think the developers have, great graphics, good ideas. I mean, the writing seems solid. It seemed like it was all on track. And if I had clicked with the combat, different story, I probably would really love it. I probably would have finished it. But it just doesn't make sense to my head. So no, that's what it's like. Very puzzly combat. Maybe watch a couple videos in more depth than I did. Maybe give it a shot. But just heads up, it's not your traditional turn-based tactics. So there you go, Demonschool. Now let's talk for a minute about Skate Story. This one has been coming for a while. I know a lot of people are very excited about it, seeing lots of people talking about it, which is great. I believe it was available as a PlayStation Plus download. I didn't get a code, but I did play it, but I didn't pay for it. So it must either be on Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. I can't remember. I want to say it was PlayStation Plus. This one is kind of an indie joint. It's got a very abstract kind of story to it. You're a demon who is hungry, and you keep looking up at the moon, and for some reason you think you can eat the moon, and you can. So you're in hell, and you make a deal with Satan to get a skateboard so you can go eat the moon, and then things happen, and shenanigans, and whatever. It's pretty cool. It's interesting. It's very weird and dreamy weemy and strange, and I mean there's all sorts of weirdness that happens to it. So it's an interesting story from that perspective. It's very surreal, I think. But first impressions, this is going to be a recurring theme like I mentioned earlier. When I started playing Skate Story, it's third person. By the time you start playing, you are a demon made of shards of glass. You're very fragile. You're on a skateboard, and you're in these strange hellscapes that you're skating through. And there's lots of visual effects, and the way the camera is, this game made me sick as fuck. I got so sick from playing this. And again, I'm like, is it me? Is it my age? Is it my eyes? Is it my stomach? What's going on? I haven't really ever gotten very sick playing games, but like this year, I feel like I've played at least 4 or 5 games that all made me really ill. This one made me intensely ill. I couldn't even look at it for more than a couple seconds before getting sick. So I went into the settings and I turned off basically everything. Turned off the filter, turned off some of the fisheye. I changed the distance, thankfully. And I have to kind of raise an eyebrow at this. The developer gives you loads of options to change the visuals. So I have to imagine that I can't be the only person who got sick from doing this. Otherwise, these options wouldn't be there if it was no problem. But there was loads of options. I turned off basically like everything. I changed the way that the camera moved. All sorts of stuff. Changed off the flicker and everything. So like I really stripped it down. And once I turned basically everything off, I'm like, okay, I can kind of look at this now and it doesn't make me want to puke. So I did get to a comfortable place with it, but man, in the beginning, I just wanted to fucking hurl like all over the place. It was really nauseating. So that took a minute. But the vibe is cool. The demon in hell skating towards the moon. That's all very, very dreamy weemy, interesting, surreal. I will say the soundtrack is fucking banger. It's really good. The soundtrack, I'm not a person who really pays a lot of attention to music. It's not something that I focus on a lot, but this soundtrack just kind of jumped up and grabbed me. Like, it's really, 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 really quite good. A lot of good ambient stuff, some good, more pulse pounding tunes. Just like a whole mix of stuff. I'm not a music critic, as you can tell. My vocabulary is lacking, but man, the soundtrack was just really good, notably good. So that was good. Visuals are interesting once you get past the nausea. Concept is interesting. Music is fantastic. But as you play the skateboarding is fine. I had a little bit of finger confusion. Like, something about it just didn't really initially click. The way you like hold a button to do tricks was kind of weird. I'm sure I would have gotten it if I'd put more time into it. But I think the thing that really kind of cooled me off on it was you don't just skate all the time. Like, there's a lot of like doing side quests for other demons, and you're in these other areas where you're kind of like in a small area. Like, in some of the beginning parts, you skate through some stuff, do some jumps, and get through some courses. But then you get to an open area where you're like, find me this drink and find me this other thing and pop 3 of these things or whatever. And so you're kind of skating around looking for these things. And I felt like it just really slowed the whole game down. There was actually more talking than I wanted in this game. And when I got to those sections where you're doing things that are not skating, I found my attention starting to wander. I was like, I don't really want to search this area and just mess around looking for stuff. I kind of wanted just something more focused and a little bit more intense, maybe a little bit more reflex based. And that stuff is there, but there's a lot of like what I felt like to be a little bit of downtime. I'm not saying it's filler exactly. I think this game is like a vibe, and if you click with the vibe, I think it's going to really match. But I was just wanting some action, and there is action here, but also there's a lot of like just other stuff, talking to people, and I think there's like a currency, and you got to like do these quests and stuff. And it was just like one of the quests is like, oh, jump over these 5 things. And another one was like, seek out this thing that's hidden, and you find it and you reveal it, and then you do a trick on it, and then it opens up a door. I mean, cool. Like, I'm not slamming it. I'm not bashing it or anything. I'm just like, it just wasn't what I wanted. And I just wanted something more focused and action, and that just wasn't what it was. But I think it's a great vibe. I think it's making a statement. I'll say that. It's got a vision that it's very clear on. It's doing what it wants to do. It's saying what it wants to say. And I respect it for that. I respect it for sure. I don't think it's right for me right now, and that's fine, but I bet it's going to be right for a lot of folks. And I bet a lot of people who especially like the indies or the niche or the weird or the abstract are going to really like this one a lot, if you don't get as sick as I do. So I respect it from that angle. It just wasn't my jam, and I bounced, but not really a criticism or anything. I think it's just kind of a taste and a vibe thing. So there you go. Skate story. Next up is Morsels. This one has been anticipated for a while. Visual style of this one is really what people notice. It's very weird and kind of unsettling. This is a top-down indie roguelike, but there's also kind of I don't know that it's necessarily a Pokemon element. I don't know that it's necessarily a card deck building element. You're a mouse, and you're in this weird world. I don't know if it's post-apocalyptic or just fantasy or what, but it's got this really old school VHS grainy ass kind of look to it, and it's very pixely, and everything looks fleshy and wet and pulpy and smushy. It's very unsettling. But you're a mouse, and you need to get to, I don't know, the top of whatever to do a thing. And along the way, you have no powers as a mouse, but you find these cards, and these cards will let you turn into different animals. So I think the very first one, you get a choice between a storm cloud and a flower. And the storm cloud punches people for some reason, but his special ability is to call down lightning. The flower shoots pollen, I guess, like a gun. And I think their special ability is to do like a little area of effect pollen explosion or something like that. And considering that flowers use pollen to reproduce, I wouldn't think too deeply into that aspect of it. This is a family show, by the way. So that's what you do. So as you go on, you'll find other cards and change into different things. I found one that was like a mushroom that made other little clone mushrooms, and you command them like an army, which was pretty cool. There was like a snail or something that like left a trail that was toxic, and then when you pushed a button, the little trail like shot towards people. Kind of hard to use, but it was interesting. And there's a couple other ones. But But you just like do this top-down, real-time action, dodging enemies, dodging shots, fighting. I mean, it feels a little bit like Binding of Isaac in that way, where you're just kind of like doing this real-time action in these small arenas. But it's one of those indies that feels kind of like Arch and Smarty Pants to me, where they don't explain really anything. And you're supposed to just like experiment and figure out and try to, put clues together and figure out what goes where and what does what. And I'm just like, not a fan of those. Like, I just explain stuff to me, please. So I played it and it was fine. I mean, I think each monster you can have up to 3 and you switch between them at will with the D-pad. Each has their own life bar. So if you get really low on one, you can switch to another one and kind of like make it last a little bit longer. Switch between them, find new ones on the way. But you're basically just doing real-time combat and trying to navigate these areas. If you take too long in an area, like if you're really trying to like sweep and comb every last resource from an area, like this giant snake comes and I believe he's invincible. So it kind of like gives you some time pressure to keep moving through these areas. And that's basically it. I didn't play it for a long time. I found it to be... It was fine. I mean, it was fine. Pretty idiosyncratic, pretty unsettling with the graphics, but the gameplay was kind of straightforward, and I thought it was all right. It was okay. It didn't really capture my attention, but I didn't really have any strong criticisms of it either. It was just like, it's a weird little indie that looks really super weird, and if you want some real-time action, somewhat similar to like the Binding of Isaac, you can kind of get that here. And that's, I don't know, that's about it. I guess I just don't have a strong opinion of it either way. It was fine. It was fine. That's my review. It was fine. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. Will I play more? Probably not. But I didn't not like it. It was just a thing. It was a thing that I played. It worked. There was no bugs. It was smooth. It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. Okay, there's Morsels. All right, last game of the show is Night Swarm. Paid cash money for this one out of my own pocket and out of the money that you guys donate to the show, so thank you very much for that. Cheap price. It was only like $10, and I think that's a great price for what is ultimately a pretty great game. This is a Survivors-like, Vampire Survivors-like, where you are a vampire prince who has risen from his grave into the middle of some vampire politics. Somebody fucks somebody over and they're now the big bad, and so you've got to put him in his place and restore order to the vampire court. It's not that big a deal as far as the story goes. In fact, I just told you the whole thing right there. This is really just a gameplay focused experience, but the story's there. When you wake up from your castle, there are several other vampires in your castle, and each one of those is a vendor for different abilities that you can use to buff yourself. There's a guy who expands the castle to give you more starting buffs. There's a lady that gives you these medallions that you can use to again give you better starting buffs. Starting buffs. There's a skill tree guy. There's a guy that handles your gear, cape, boots, weapon, and ultimately like a headpiece later on. Mix and match those. There's a book that you can unlock new weapons in, so forth and so on. So you've got like a whole castle full of things that you can upgrade over time. These are all permanent progression that are unlocked by collecting various currencies in the world. When you get into the world to do the actual combat, the Survivors-like combat, the first thing you'll notice actually caught me very much by surprise. Everybody in this game is for some reason like a board game piece. So your vampire is like a little tiny statue guy, and he's on a little round base, just like if you were getting a piece for a board game. And so instead of running like an actual animated character, he just like, it's like someone is like invisible hands are moving him going down the board. And I'm like, why does it look like this? What is going on? I can only guess because there's no actual implementation. There's no board. There's no squares. There's no real way in this game that board game comes into it. The only thing I can think of, and please don't be offended, developers, is like you just didn't have the animation skill, and so you made them statues. It doesn't make any sense thematically. It doesn't make any sense aesthetically. I think you just couldn't animate them, and that's the decision you made to get around it, which I guess is a choice. I don't like that choice very much. Really turned me off at first. I was like, oh man, this is what's going on. Like, why is this vampire not running? Why is everybody a game piece? We're not on a game board. What's happening? It doesn't make sense. If they were going to do that, they should have leaned into the game boardness of it, but they really don't. So it's a very strange aesthetic choice, which I absolutely do not like. That said, character design looks pretty cool. I mean, I think the art in general, very vampire-y. Fangs, web, dark castle, torches, bats, lots of bats. You get it. You know what the vibe is like. So that's all on point. And something that's interesting about this is you cannot just rack up power and power and power and power the way you can in Vampire Survivors. You have a limit. You have a limit of 4 abilities, which is pretty small for the genre. So what happens is you have to be very aware of which ones have synergy. Get 1 power. Let's say, for example, you get the... Oh, it's like the scythe, and then you combine it with the, I don't know, boomerang or something like that. So those will take up 2 slots, but if you level them both up to level 10, you combine them, then they take up 1 slot, and you can take on another weapon. So if you played long enough, you could theoretically have like 4 super-powered weapons, which are made up of 8 individual weapons, but that would take a while. But it's interesting they limit you that way, so you have to be very tactical about which ones you take. You have to be very, very choosy. Otherwise, you're going to end up with like 4 different weapons that don't synergize together, and you're going to be a little bit underpowered when it comes to like the end of the game. So, minute-to-minute gameplay, much like you'd expect. Swarms of guys come in from all sides. You get them with whatever weapon. You don't aim anything. It's all auto-fire, which is great. All the weapons are varied. There's like a knife and bombs and a little blood pool, and there's bats that shoot lasers and all sorts of stuff like that. You also get helper vampires to come with you, and each one has their own ability. I have usually the sexy lady vampire who gives me greater attack, and then I have the butler vampire who makes me attack faster. I feel like that's the best combination I've found so far, but there's other people. Other people like help you run faster, or they give you better critical hits and all sorts of stuff. So you find those guys along the way to buff you up. And then the really interesting thing is they've taken Vampire Survivors like gameplay, but married it to like a Slay the Spire progression, like a roguelike progression. So rather than playing one long level for like half an hour like you would in Vampire Survivors, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you play 3 minutes of Vampire Survivors, and then you go back to a map where you choose which way you want to go, which route you want to go on, which, there's a whole bunch of nodes on a map. And so like you start off, you want to get your companion first. I recommend doing that. Then it could be like you have a choice of like regular battle, boss battle, or maybe treasure chest, and you pick one of those and do that. And then the next time you'll have a choice of like, fight a couple werewolves or go to the upgrade station or whatever. And so you kind of plot your way through the land, and you can see the whole map ahead of time. So you know which ones you want to hit. Sometimes some are more better than other. More better. Fuck, I said it again. Jesus. It's like I don't even know English. More better. Some are better than others. And so you can kind of, know ahead of time and route your course. But I think it's interesting that they make you play in 3-minute bursts. And in some ways, I think it's a really smart choice because Vampire Survivors, I think, plays in 20-minute bursts. And that to me is like the maximum amount of time I want to do something like that in one go. When I played Ultimate Zombie Survivors, which was actually quite a good game, despite the really cheesy title, you had to play in 30-minute bursts. And that extra 10 minutes really made a big difference in that it felt like way, way, way too long. I think 20 minutes I was topping out. So to play a Vampire Survivors for 3 minutes in bite-sized chunks, 3 minutes, take a break, 3 minutes, take a break, 3 minutes, take a break. It works pretty well. I think it works pretty well. Along the way in each battle, you'll get like little stations. You've got to like hold the point, capture the point to do, get some treasure, level up a little bit, get a free weapon or something like that. So you do all sorts of things in each level, manage your upgrades, work with your partners. And then at the end of each run, you get a boss battle. And if you do well against that boss battle, they give you like a pile of resources to go back, take back to the castle and level up and just do it all again. There is an endpoint. I think there are 10 or 11 stages. And you can play each of them on normal, hard, and like balls hard or something like that. I'm only doing the normal right now, and I think that's totally fine. I think the difficulty has been great. It's been scaled up very well. I've been able to just make very steady progress. I don't feel like it's too grindy. I feel like the level of power-ups I'm getting are equal to the progress I'm making. So I don't have to ever go back and grind, and I don't feel like I'm stuck, and I don't feel like I'm overpowered. So I think the developers have done a very good job with that. And I'm going to just really do my best to get to the end and roll credits. I think I've got maybe like 3 or 4 levels left. And altogether, they usually take about half an hour or less. So I think that's a really great size. The economy of spending time on this game is really great. I feel like I've always unlocked something, or I've gotten something, or I'm looking forward to something. So that's all working well. I think this is It's not going to reinvent the wheel, but I do like how it plays. I like the decisions they're making. I like that they're experimenting with the genre. And I think it's really good. I think it's really good. I will also say this is another game where the soundtrack is fucking kick ass. They've got this like kind of like semi-electric orchestral stuff. And like when the violin gets really aggressive, I'm just like, yeah, man, yeah, get it, violin person. Like they're going for it. It sounds really good. Kind of like gothic and like, I don't know, really kind of emo, but in a good way, and kind of goth a little bit in a good way. It just works. The music is really good. I think it fits very well. So I think that's good. On the downside, it's a little bit buggy. I'm playing it on PS5 right now. I will say sometimes the music hitches a little bit. So the save system is really weird. They need to fix that like ASAP. Developers, if you're listening, fix your save system ASA fucking P. It should save every time you go back to the castle, and that's not been happening. So on PS5, what happens is I'll beat a boss, go back to the castle, level up and do whatever, and then I stop because I want to go do something else, live my life, and come back. And when I come back to the game, I got to fight that boss again. And I'm like, no. That is a problem. That is a capital P problem. I can't be refighting bosses every time I want to get back into the game, So that's a problem. Also, I think the hitboxes are a little unclear. And I will say one thing that I think is a small choice, but an important one, is that when the screen gets hectic, your helper vampires that come with you sometimes walk in front of you. And what that means is when you're looking at the screen and there's like 1,000 guys on the screen, you automatically assume, or at least I do, that the vampire in front is your guy. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you're in the middle, sometimes you're in the back, which makes it very hard to determine where you should be in order to avoid damage. The helper vampires, in my opinion, should always trail you no matter where you are. You should always be the active first vampire in the line. That way you know where to dodge, where to move, how to get out of trouble. You don't need that visual clutter there. And the developers do seem aware of some of the clutter. There are options to reduce the opacity of some of the effects, which is fine. But I think more important than that is don't get me confused with which vampire is which, because when there's 1,000 guys on screen and things are popping, it's really hard to tell at a glance which vampire is yours. And if you've got 2 helpers, I've had up to 2 so far, it's a guess as to which one is which. And so I take some hits I don't think I need to take. So developers, please make sure that the helper vampires stay behind you all the time. They can follow you. They should not go in front of you. Okay. I think those are my only real complaints. I think this is like a really fun, really solidly built game. Having a great time with it. I think it knows what it's doing, and I think it's doing it well. It needs a little bit of polish, a little bit of finesse, but this is a great game, and especially for the price, like $10. Fuck yeah, dude. This is like a home run for $10. So if you want some Vampire Survivors action, this is a good one. Just be prepared to see the weird animation of puzzle or like board game pieces walking around, which is a bad idea. But other than that, I think it works and I'm having a good time. So Night Swarm is fun. All right, folks, that is it for this week. That was more games than I planned to talk about, and now we are done. But like many humans, I do spend a few minutes every week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right. It is time for the TV and movie roundup. First up, we watched second season of Man on the Inside in Netflix. This is starring Ted Danson, who must be like 75 or 80 right now. He plays a retiree who has recently been widowed, and he takes up, well, he doesn't really take it up. He kind of falls into being an assistant private eye in order to fill his time. It's a very sweet show. It's about human connection. It's about aging gracefully. It's about what do you do with your life? What does your life mean? It's also a light mystery. Lots of fun and jokes. Everybody's really likable on that show. It's just a warm, fuzzy show, even though they do talk about some heavier themes like, dementia or your failing body or just eventually death and things like that. So they do touch on those topics. But overall, what a warm and wonderful family show. We really like it a lot. Man on the Inside is really good. Season 2 was good. Just finished it. Great stuff. I think it's like 8 episodes. Beyond that, the wife and I just finished The Strain. Ultimately 4 seasons on Hulu. Talked about it before. This is Guillermo del Toro was like writer / producer, and the wife and I are big fans of his, so we wanted to see all of his output. This is one of the very few things left that we hadn't seen. It's like this and Crimson Peak, I think, are the only things we haven't seen from him. I think we've seen everything else, and it's all great stuff. So The Strain was basically like The Walking Dead, but with parasitic vampires instead of zombies. And it ran on network TV. I think it was like Fox or something like that. Pretty good stuff. There's some, week-to-week TV silliness, but I think the cast was really strong. The vampires are fucking gross and nasty, so that was good. Action was good. We were entertained every week. We always wanted to come back and see what was happening. I will say, though, season 4 we were not ready. We were not ready for how dark that got, and especially dark in relation to our modern times. It almost feels like in some ways they are predicting the Trump era with the stuff that happens politically, the vampires taking the role of like Republicans and what they're doing to the country and doing to other people, in terms of like, ICE and immigration and being cruel to other humans. You could, if you squint, the vampires look like Republicans, and this show was made, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. So it's not like they are responding to Trump. It's like they predicted it. But then again, I mean, a lot of other people predicted it. These are not the only people in the world, but it's just, it's creepy and it's dark. And some of the shit they show, which I will not spoil here, is really heavy, very heavy. Not only because it's heavy in the show, but heavy because I could easily imagine that happening here. Like I said, just swap out the vampires for Republicans. It's literally the same thing. So that went places we were not prepared. And I will say, again, not to spoil anything, one of the characters in the show is the fucking worst character I've ever seen. Not that their acting was bad, although their acting was kind of bad, but just the stuff they do and what a terrible person they were on the show. Like, we were like, oh my God, you are the fucking worst. We hate you. And I think the writers tried to redeem them at the very end. It didn't quite work, but I mean, we're satisfied with what happened. I will say that I'm glad the show wraps up. It does come to a definite conclusion, which is great. In today's modern TV landscape, you're never sure if they're going to pull the rug out from under you and your show's going to just like stop. But no, they don't stop. They finish it, which is good. I feel like the ending was okay. Felt a little bit rushed. There's a couple things that happened, which I was like, I don't know about that. I know I might want to see something a little bit different happening there, but it all came together. I'm really glad I watched it. I thought it was good. I thought it was gross. I thought it was fun, scary, weird. It made us think. It's very political. It's good stuff. I think it's accidentally political, but it ended up being really good stuff. So big thumbs up to The Strain. 4 seasons. We loved it. Final thing we watched this week was Wake Up Dead Man, the latest Knives Out mystery from Rian Johnson. Pretty good. 2.5 hours, so I felt like it was maybe 30 minutes too long, although to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure what I would cut. So it was a long watch. I definitely had to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, but it was good. It was very good. I think the characters were strong. The mystery was intriguing. This series always talks about political things that are going on right now, very timely political. So there was definitely some commentary happening again on the Trump era and about Republicans and about belief and about how people can put up with things and tolerate things and how they deal with things. It's all real stuff couched in this silly mystery about a priest who is basically killed in a room that seems impossible. Like, it seems like there was no way he could have been killed in the room, but he is killed. And so how did he get killed and who killed him and why and what's going on at this church? Definite religious stuff going on, but it was more than about just religion. It was about a lot of things, but really well done. Liked it. Huge thumbs up. I'm a big fan of the series. I love all the Knives Out movies. I hope they make a dozen more, man, for real. I would watch all of them. All right, folks, that is a show. Before the closing music, would love for you to leave reviews. Honestly, leave a review, please. It doesn't have to be 5 stars. It'd be great if it was, but it doesn't have to be. I think just getting any kind of review up there would be great. Please share the show on social media. If you are in social media, I would love if you just take a minute and be like, yo, hey friends, I listened to the show and I liked it. And maybe you would like it too. Maybe get the word out, get some people listening. That would be great. And that goes hand in hand with the best way to share this is just through word of mouth. Maybe just talk to somebody, maybe tell somebody about it. You're having coffee with a friend. You're talking to somebody, online. You're chatting to somebody in Discord. You're like, hey, do you know about the show? Share the show. That would be great. If you think the show is good, you listen to it. I would appreciate. Personal challenge to you, dear listeners. Pick one person who's never heard this show and recommend it to them and see if they like it. Word of mouth. So important. Also, would love to get your questions and comments. Hit me up at sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit me on social media. I'm on Instagram with Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway, all A's, no O's. You can reach me in the Soviet Games Discord, which is free of charge to join. Just drop me a line and I will send you an invite. We'll get you on board to continue the conversation every week. A lot of lovely people in the Discord. And finally, if you want to support this very show with the help of running this podcast and also sister site GameCritics.com, you can do that. Please do that over at patreon.com/the Soviet Games Podcast. Every single dollar helps, and €1 helps that much more. Folks, that's going to do it for episode 466. Thank you again for joining me here on the Soviet Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.